RWBY Volume 6, Episode 11, The Lady in the Shoe. So this was a really great episode. Of course, I will be starting from beginning to end because the ending was my favorite part, admittedly. But this was a really good episode. It was a great action episode, but it had some great, emotional beats, especially at the very end. But they did some good stuff, even in the first fight. And I mentioned in my last episode review, I was hoping that most of this episode would focus, of course, on the, the Blake, Yang, and Adam situation. But I'm excited for what they did because we got like the last 5 minutes of this episode was the fight that I was looking forward to. But the way that it ends, it still goes into the next episode. So I'm looking forward to that. Plus, we have the conclusion to the first battle from this episode as well. So neither of the battles officially ended. It was just kind of like a really big cliffhanger ending where the ship gets hit at the very end. But I really loved it. We got a new song, which I thought was great. The action in general was good. You guys might notice like a lot of visual stuff happening because that episode's actually playing on my TV. But it was such a good scene. Like they did some really cool stuff, like little stuff that I noticed. Like Crow, I really enjoyed in this because the big thing with him is that he's been, kind of down in the dumps where it's like, none of this is going to work. Nothing's going to happen. But he was fully on board with the plan and, he's a part of helping and, him transforming and stuff like that. Visually, it just looked cool. It's little stuff that we don't get to see too often. Like we got to see RWBY's resemblance, which I thought was fantastic. And we get to see it, its weaknesses, which I thought was great because we've never seen it. Because she uses that ability, and it's kind of just like, boom, it's unlimited, and she gets out of every situation. She can do this, she can do that, and that's pretty much how it works. But we see in this episode a couple situations where she can't use it. So it's like either a time limit is like a little bit of a burst, like when she falls off of the when she falls down and Weiss ends up catching her, it's like, how'd you know I was going to catch you? And in my head, I'm thinking, well, why didn't she just use her semblance? But that shows, like, there's a time gap between how she can use it or how long she can use it and stuff like that. And, like, her using it, at the very end where she misses the ledge, she's not able to just, jump right back up and do it because it's based on gravity. So if she jumps up, she has, like, it's almost like a boost in momentum. Whichever direction she's going in, that's the direction her semblance will, shoot her in even faster. So if she's falling, it doesn't do any good to, drop faster. So I thought that was cool. And maybe we'll get to see it. I think we have seen it where she's, kind of curved herself, like, as she's dropping, but she was going to hit water. It's not like she would curve and then just, gently land on the ground. She would have hit the water no matter what. So I thought it was really cool to see that. We get to see the characters, Jean coming up with the plan, which I thought was a nice throwback to, I think that was Volume 4, when that first happened, and he was kind of the leader of the team and everything, and he was the one coming up with the idea. So I thought that was awesome. And we've had that, of course, with his main plan, but this was, within the battle situation. Like, in the moment, he's like, all right, this is what we have to do. We can split ourselves up because that machine's based on, large creatures, large Grimm coming out of the water. So we can use our size to an advantage. So we split ourselves up and we do, do certain things this way. We got to see Weiss use, like, the earth dust, which I thought was super cool because we never see her use the other dust really. Like we normally see is like fire, we've seen lightning, and obviously ice is like the main thing, but I don't think there's ever been a moment where we saw her actually use like stone. So I thought that was super cool when she jumps out of the ship and she makes like a shield out of stone. I was like, well, that's super awesome because we like never see her do that. So that was cool. Her making like the little pockets of ice for her and RWBY to jump on, I thought that was pretty sweet. The song was really cool, like I mentioned, but they also had parts where like there's a part where Crow, like when he first gets on the ship and he's like shooting it, or he gets on the robot and he's shooting it, his music starts playing. So I couldn't tell if that was actually a part of the song or if that was just them throwing his theme in there and they just made it really light because the other beat was still in the background. So I was like, I don't know if that's actually a part of the song or if that was just like, that's just how it is. Because it starts off with them saying like, mirror, mirror, who will lose it all. So it has Weiss's stuff in there. So I was like, I don't know if this is like a full group, song where it has different people's themes playing throughout. But the only ones I really noticed was Weiss because it had the lyrics, and then Crow's I actually noticed. But I thought it was really cool. So I like the song. I like everything that we got to see from the characters. And Nora yelling like, get back here with my man, which I thought was super funny, and like an official thing. Like they kind of show, of course, in the opening where they're sitting together and how close they are. But I thought it was interesting, like the way they have that in the opening. I feel like this is actually the first time we really see them acknowledge the fact that they're like officially a couple at this point. Because I was like, I feel weird that that's in the opening, but they still haven't really had a moment where like they haven't even hugged like the way they do in the actual opening, I've noticed. So it was just always interesting to see that. So I was happy to hear her say that actual line because I was like, okay, at least that's something, because they have it in the opening, and I feel like that's just never really come up. I feel like it's been the same as it's always been between them, but that line kind of helped just show like, no, it's advanced officially, but we just haven't seen it as much. I would just kind of like to see it more because they have it in the opening. It's like I kind of like to see them officially, like just being a couple, something like that. But really loved it. We got to see Jean use his not semblance, but his enhanced aura abilities to protect himself and Nora when the ship comes in and tries to swat Nora. He helps her out. So thought that was a cool moment, but loved the whole opening fight sequence. I thought that was really entertaining. Like I said, the song was good, so we gotta wait, another month for that, or 2 months or whatever. So gotta wait for the song. Everything we saw with the characters was cool. I love the visuals with how it starts, where they show everything split up in slow motion, and then RWBY shooting up in the air, and Crow comes out as she's basically transforming back into herself. So I thought that looked super cool. So I love that sequence. But then of course it gets to my favorite part of the episode, which is Blake and Adam, and it was so freaking good, and I cannot wait to see how this concludes, because like I said, I don't know if he's gonna live or die, and I just don't know. I don't know how this is gonna end up playing out ultimately, but man, it was so good. And just the way it transitions, the things that happen, it's little stuff that happens in this fight, just like in the first one. For instance, we, of course, RIP Bumblebee, so we no more motorcycles, so that's sad. Blake loses her main weapon. I don't remember the names of any of the people's weapons except for Weiss's. So unfortunately I can't remember Blake's main weapon name, but she loses her weapon, and that's her whole thing. It's her katana, it's her her full-on Spider-Man mode she was in this. So it's her little shuriken, it's her gun, it's her katana, it's her main thing outside of her sheath, which is her larger sword, which she never uses anymore. We haven't seen her officially use that. I don't think she's officially used that since the trailer. Not that I can recall. I'm sure there's some moment where she has, but I swear I feel we have not seen her officially use the sword and the sheath as a large blade since the trailer, where she actually cuts stuff with the sheath, because she can. We just never really see it anymore. So it's actually kind of cool to see her be forced to use the sheath as an actual weapon. So I love that just for that sake. But it was really cool, little stuff like that. Well, that's a big thing. The motorcycle, I would say, is a little thing. That's, that's Yang's thing. But I still feel that's smaller compared to, a character losing their main weapon. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. Are they just going to rebuild it? Is she going to get, a new looking weapon? Same function, but, new look. But it was super cool, little stuff like that. We see her without the jacket, because Adam cuts the jacket and she uses it as a maneuver, where it looks like her arm is, of course, in the sleeve, so she's in a totally different position than it looks like. So I thought that was pretty sweet, too. So we see her without the jacket, which I thought was pretty cool. And then, of course, Adam in general, just still my favorite. Just watching him fight is, the best thing. Sometimes, this episode made me realize I kind of wish he was a good guy, just so I could see him fight more, because it's really unfortunate. Him being one of the villains, we don't get to see him fight nearly as much as I would like to, because he's my favorite character to watch fight, because it's so insanely visceral watching him fight. It's just ridiculously fun. And so going through this episode, he's chasing Blake down, and she's going through the trees, and he's doing some Captain America type stuff. I never paid any attention to it before, but when they're in the forest and she's swinging around and he shoots the blade off to stop her from basically stamping the blade into another tree, it comes right back to him. I was like, that's some Captain America type junk, where you can just shoot it off and it'll just fly back to him at some point. And it was just fun watching it, and I was like, man, this is so freaking cool. And then we have him, of course, fighting and stuff, and he takes down Blake. And so we see she's got a scar on her stomach, which I'm pretty sure is new. That's not something that was revealed before. So I'm curious about what the story is going to end up being behind that. But more importantly, we get to see Adam's face, and I don't think I'm reading too much into it, because with RWBY, every little thing is a big thing. But the fact that it wasn't just a simple scar on his face, and his scar literally says SOS on it, I thought was the coolest thing in the world. I was like, he is the danger, he is the emergency, he's the SOS. So it's he's the one that people need help from. So I thought that was cool. Or it's a reference to the fact that he's the one who needs help, because as Blake mentioned in this episode, he's delusional. He says you're scared, you ran away and you're a coward. And I was like, is he really talking about her or himself? Because he's the one who's kind of lost it after she left. And it was just a very interesting thing. It was kind of funny when I watched the episode the second time. I was like, well, this kind of makes me think of my ex a little bit. She was a little crazy, weird stuff like that. I was like, interesting. But man, it was so good. And then of course Yang comes in, which is what's happening right now, and this is just awesome. The part where Yang does the sort of machine gun punch, I thought that was super cool. And then we find out officially that Adam's semblance is like Yang's, except it's within the blade itself. And that brought up so many other questions because I was like, all right, so does he get to choose which weapon it is? Is it based on the mark? Because, you know, his the sheath has like his mark, his emblem on it. So it's like, if he marks it, is that what allows it to do that? Or, you know, are there other rules to it? You know, did the sword just like come out of his body? Is it made of his body or something weird like that? So I'm like, there's still a bunch of questions to that as far as how his semblance works, if he could just transfer that to another weapon, or, you know, what the case is. But it was amazing watching it. Like, I loved watching it, and him, you know, fighting against Yang, and him like using his semblance. And it's really fun to watch because with their semblance being similar, we get to see, you know, especially with them saying like this is exactly what his semblance is. It's interesting to look back at all the stuff that he's done, and we see how with Yang, her semblance is basically brute strength, but his is just power. So it's like a different element. Like, hers is strength, his is power, because he can use his for speed. He can use it, like in this episode, he's making like seismic waves and stuff when he stabs it in the ground. He was doing the move where he basically, there's like 3 images of him, like the shadow images of him, and that's all from his semblance because he's using that power to basically create, you know, different abilities. It's like having super speed or something as your power, but you have like super healing as an extra ability. It's almost like that. Like, his semblance is taking energy, but his power is being able to like have super speed or make seismic waves or like cut through anything and stuff like that. And I thought that was a really cool thing. Like, once they actually explained it, it's like, oh, his semblance is this, but he can do so much more with it. He can make shadow images. He can move super fast. He can basically, you know, have super strength with the way he strikes, you know, using his blade. But it was so good. Like, it was such a great fight. And then of course it ends, and, you know, he's standing there, and he realizes, you know, Blake and Yang are, you know, they're together, they're friends, they're basically family. And that pisses him off, and that's when he does, like, you know, tries to do like this really big wave to take Yang down. And she uses, of course, the arm that he chopped off. She uses the robot arm to officially protect herself. And I thought that was super cool. And then it's like, Blake realizes, like, you know, she's not protecting me and I'm not protecting her. We're protecting each other. And so they're going to go into this next episode. I don't know how this is going to play out because, you know, Blake is injured. She only has the sheath to her weapon. Yang is getting to the point where she's freaking out because, you know, the whole thing is that she would come across this guy, but she was able to, I had to pause it before it cuts off on me. She was able to take him on, but after not being able to beat him, like, you know, in that initial burst, that's when it kind of settled in. Like, she wasn't amped up anymore, and she started to like calm down a little. Excuse me. And that's when she starts to freak out. And Adam sees it and is like, you know, is it really my last chance? Or, excuse me, are you just trying to, you know, scare me off? So I thought that was cool. Like, they kind of did it both ways, where she was able to stand up to him, and then she got freaked out because it was like, you know, I had my burst of energy, you know, Yang doing her thing, being angry, and then that didn't end it. Like, he's still too powerful. Like, he's, you know, he's Adam. So that's when, you know, reality starts to set in. Like, she was amped up. She went through all that energy, and then it got to the end where, you know, it's that pause where it's like, I didn't beat him. She couldn't beat him. She's already injured. Like, we can't really help each other that much. But, you know, Blake is able to kind of bring her back to reality. Like, you know, we can do this if we team up together. So there's the two of them officially going into the next episode. So I can't wait for that. Like I said, I think I mentioned this in my last review. I don't want him to die. I don't mind if he loses or goes to jail, but I don't want them to kill him because Adam is still like my favorite character, admittedly. Even though he's such a terrible person, it's so awesome to watch him fight. He's still got like one of my favorite costumes in this original outfit. I've enjoyed it more. Like, watching it in these last 2 episodes, I really do like his more recent outfit now. I wouldn't mind if he went back to the bandana thing. I just thought it was a cool blind samurai look. But seeing it, you know, seeing the SOS, I can't wait for that story as well. So I don't think he'll die. And if they do kill him, then someone else would have to tell that story. But I think at some point we're going to get that backstory. We'll get that flashback of the first moment that happened to him. So I'm looking forward to that. Like, I can't wait to see that because I'm like, all right, that's a big deal. That's a huge story. He talks about how people hurt him in a lot of different ways before, you know, Blake ever came along. But it was so good. It was just a really good freaking episode. It had its emotional beats. It had little things here and there where it's like, all right, Crow was, you know, getting back into it. We got to see, you know, no more motorcycle, no more main weapon for Blake. So we'll see what that does. I'm sure she can just walk and get her jacket. You know, that'll be fine, I'm sure. But then the emotional beats, and then them showing Adam's scar was a big deal. Them showing like that small scar. Like I said, I don't believe that was something that's happened before. It may be something I'm just forgetting because there's always little stuff that I forget from some of the fight scenes. But I feel like that was something that was brand new. So you guys can, of course, tell me if that's just something I totally forgot that actually did happen. But I really enjoyed that. And the fact that, Adam tried to stab her in the same spot. And that's why I was trying to remember when he did it. I was like, all right, is that something that I missed? But I don't remember her, being stabbed there before. So that's what I was basically trying to remember. Because I don't think he stabbed her when they had their first fight. I think the scene where he was about to, she tried to decapitate her was after he had cut Blake's arm off. But I don't think he stabbed her there when they had that fight in Volume 3. But I also don't remember. Like I said, it's been a minute, but I don't remember him actually stabbing her in the stomach. But that could have been, exactly what it was. And I just, like I said, can't remember that specific fight scene. But either way, love this episode. Love the action. Love the music. Love the little moments from the characters. Can't wait for next week's episode. We're going to get to see the conclusion to this battle. It's going to officially be Blake and Yang fighting together, which should be interesting, with Blake being weaker, Yang now being in her, slightly weakened state after she had her initial burst. And I was surprised she didn't have, any of her semblance to kind of, back up on, because with him, especially at the end when he did the giant wave, I thought that was going to be her destroying him, because I thought she was going to absorb that energy and then, send it back at him. But I think it was because it was in her robotic arm, technically it doesn't count, which I think is an interesting caveat to her abilities. But I thought it was cool, and I'm excited to see how they kind of overcome this really dangerous dude who is insanely tough for anyone to beat, So I'm definitely looking forward to the next episode. Of course, we'd love to know what you guys thought about this, and so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. And of course, I would love to know your predictions for both battles going into the next episode and how they're going to conclude, what happened to the ship, what's going to happen with Adam, Blake, and Yang. That's obviously the more important part to me, but I would love to know your predictions on how everything's going to play out. And like I said, definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.